Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for May 1st. Wow, April was a tough month. Middle of March, April, very, very difficult. And I am reminded that a lot of us readers did say that March and April were going to be especially difficult for Trump, and that appears to unfortunately have come to pass. It's unfortunate for all of the rest of you in the States, and frankly us in the world, who are having to sort of live with the implications and ramifications of the way he does things and the way he thinks. So we're sitting at, in the United States, you're sitting at just several thousands, over 1 million cases of coronavirus. Now, that is like 1/3 of the cases globally. But the United States, of course, does not account for 1/3 of the global population. So that is just literally a snapshot picture of how really, really off the rails things have gone there. And, you know, what's happening now is you're getting more and more people who are a little agitated. They're kind of tired of the lockdown. They want things to loosen up at least a little bit. You know, people are willing to make a sacrifice for a couple of weeks, but when you're talking a couple months, they tend to get testy. And frankly, in and of itself, I mean, it's happening globally, okay? But in the United States, unfortunately, that dynamic just really, really seems to create more chaos. And it really does sort of create more like insanity in terms of Trump and the administration and how he behaves. So I've heard that he actually threatened, so that Pascal guy, you know, his campaign manager. Well, apparently they sat down with him and they told him that, you know what, buddy, these daily press conferences are really, really bad for you. Like, you need to stop doing them. You know, your poll numbers are starting to really reflect the fact that people aren't liking it. And apparently they say his response was, but my TV ratings are great. I have to keep doing this. I know. It's terrifying. It's upsetting. It's all kinds of things. But apparently, once he got that news, he did not decide that maybe it was time to reevaluate or back off or maybe even listen to experts. Nope. His response was to threaten to sue Pascal. Okay, well, so, yeah, I don't know. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that he just didn't say, you're fired? I don't know. So, I kind of want to do a bit of a deeper dive on what's going on behind the scenes, and I want to take a quick look at sort of what the inauguration is going to look like January 2021. But I'm going to put a caveat on that. It is still really early to try to get a really accurate read on that, because, you know, understand that whenever a reading is done, what you are receiving is the most likely result. Okay, you're not reading results that are set in concrete. You are reading or receiving information based on the most likely thing to happen given the current set of circumstances. So, come on down, I have a question. Let's take a look at Trump re-election behind the scenes. Trump re-election behind the scenes. Trump re-election behind the scenes. Sorry, I'm just going to reposition that a bit. Okay. So, okay, so this This kind of says it all, okay? So he has partnerships, right, that he is working with. These are people he relies on to literally fulfill the promise that he wants. Okay, he wants this wish. He wants this to happen. This represents his reelection. Apparently, he now spends a lot of time screaming things like, I will not lose to Joe Biden, make it so I don't lose to Joe Biden. Of course, not at all thinking for 1 second that he plays a role in that, because of course he doesn't. And it's Pascal and it's Jared Kushner, and these are the people, this is the inner circle that is talking to him, and he doesn't want to hear it. He is relying literally on these partnerships, whether it is with the RNC, whether it is his reelection committee, whether it is individual people within those organizations. He is literally counting on them exclusively to get this for him. Because, of course, if you are that person who doesn't think you're responsible for anything, well, then, of course, if you're talking about achieving a goal, that means that the burden of that is on somebody else's shoulders, right? He just thinks he needs to show up. And he is tanking now. Like, they're saying that they're like, he is behind Joe Biden in Texas. I think Georgia, they're saying, is now in play. That blue wall that turned into that red wall, he is losing badly to Biden there. So he's starting to get really panicky, but the reality is he doesn't want to listen to the people who are telling him how to make the situation better, because of course that is completely beyond his ability, as long as what needs to be done in any way is going to impact or need to change his behavior. So that's a situation, that's a dynamic that's going on behind the scenes. So it doesn't seem to matter how they try to sort of steer this rocky canoe, but it's not going well, okay? I mean, he spent a lot of time thinking that the economy was going to save him. And, frankly, for a lot of people, that was good enough, right? They didn't care if he was a belligerent fool. They didn't care if he antagonized your allies globally. They didn't care about any of that because the economy is good. Well, okay, so those people who were hanging in there and putting up with him because the economy was good are now, what do you have? In excess of 30 million people who have now filed unemployment claims. The economy is completely tanked, and he can't stand on that soapbox. But you know what? Don't kid yourself. He's going to try to. He is going to try to. He is going to make more false promises. He is going to, I'm the only one who can make this thing recover. That is what is behind this real push to get the country reopened. And it's not going to work because, frankly, right now, people are really, really scared. And they're not gonna go congregate in large groups, and they're not going to go places where they're not feeling that their health and safety is secured or safe. So ultimately, this ends up being the result, right? He ends up literally being stabbed in the back. But it's interesting because in this situation, it honestly doesn't feel like he is being stabbed in the back by others, as much as it actually feels that his own behavior, his own demons, his own ignorance, his own inabilities are really, really what come back and end him. And of course, he's then going to spend the rest of his pathetic little life blaming everybody and anybody, because of course he is completely incapable of recognizing his own, behavior, right? So it definitely looks like, and honestly, the more they try to tell him, the more they try to say, listen, this is the situation. Let us explain. Let us shine a light. Let us tell you the truth and the secrets and what's going on behind the scenes. The angrier and the more volatile he becomes, because that is not what he wants to hear. Apparently now he is talking about doing some road trips to go shore up support, I guess, in some of the states that are no longer as secure as, they believed they were. And I don't know how that's going to work for him. I don't know that it's going to work all that well. I mean, it's not, this is the thing, right, is there are so many people now, this represents actually the people, okay, who are aware of the truth. This represents the people who understand with some degree of clarity and intelligence what the heck is going on, not only in the country, but within the global situation. And so his lies are more and more becoming aggravating. They are more and more becoming that which people kind of can't stomach. And so I'm not sure exactly. I mean, of course, the diehards, the sycophants, of course they're going to be at these rallies or whatever the heck he's doing. I'm not sure what he's doing. I don't know that it is like a rally. They're going to stick because that's kind of what they do. But for the rest of people, they're starting to see very, very clearly. And when things are going on that they don't like and they don't approve of, there is a more immediate sort of backlash. Pence is a really good example, right? I mean, he is being absolutely raked over the coals for that. Going to, I believe it was the Mayo Clinic, and not wearing a face mask. And his answer was, well, I happen to know, I just got tested, I'm fine. So that kind of arrogance and that kind of like flaunting the rules because I'm more special than you is really, really not going to sit well. And you know what, interestingly, like the coasts are the coasts, okay? And large chunks of the population on either side of the country have really got a fair degree of clarity, even in some of those, I think, southern states. But the heartland, right, as you move towards center, those are the people that he is starting to lose. And, this is the thing. People in the heartlands, they'll give a lot. They're used to sacrificing. In some ways, they're the perfect kind of demographic for him to have gone after, right? Because they watched television. They saw him as this incredibly successful person. To their minds, they know that politics and even business sometimes isn't always up and up and pretty. So they were really, really willing to tolerate a fair bit. What they, however, are not willing to tolerate, generally speaking, is behavior, suggestions, things that do not that don't make them respond like, oh, well, of course, that makes common sense. Of course, that should be the way it is. And they don't like being blatantly lied to. And, they're really those sort of salt of the earth people. And he is going to start losing them as his lies and his behaviors and some of those Republican governors' behaviors really, really start to put their health and their livelihood in jeopardy. Now, be prepared. Over the next coming weeks, I want to almost say 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to see bumps in his ratings. Okay, they're going to go up and they're going to slide, and they're going to go up and they're going to slide. This is the thing to remember. They're never going to go up high enough that it actually changes anything, but they are going to start sliding deeper. Okay. And so don't get all wigged out. If somewhere down the line, you see, oh, his approval rating went up by 2 points. That's okay. Give it 10 days. It'll go down by 5. So that's kind of what you can anticipate, because as places start opening up, you're going to start seeing these little hiccups in the economy, right? Things are going to start looking like, oh, okay, maybe they're okay. Until a week or two later, the impact of those people running around in a way that is really not honoring physical distancing and just being basically safe, that's going to have an impact. And that's where you're going to see some real tensions going on. You know, what he's doing is the Republican governors in particular that he can manipulate or strong arm. That's what he's doing with them, because he's really depending on them to push through the opening up that he wants. And make no mistake, this has nothing to do with what's good for a particular state. This has everything to do with what he perceives is good for his reelection. You have to look at every single thing that he does now. You really have to look at it through that specific lens, okay? Because everything is about that. We have hit that time where it is all about that. And Joe Biden is sort of being laid back and he's moving along. He's kind of quietly doing his thing. And he is, you know, hammering him. And so that's getting him more and more aggravated. And as things start loosening up again towards the end of May is sort of when I see not things returning to normal, but at least there's going to be a little bit more movement and interactive behavior. As Joe starts sort of ramping up, he's going to go nuts, okay? He's just going to go nuts. Because part of what Joe Biden is going to be doing is pointing out all the ways in which Trump has destroyed the country and all the ways in which his incredibly foolish, cruel, and selfish response to this pandemic is now affecting people. And people are going to start hearing that message because, frankly, they're going to still be suffering from foolish mistakes that were made. And you're still going to have situations where, that protective equipment isn't going to be as readily available. Certainly, the testing is not going to be anywhere near what he is promising. He just shoots out numbers like, oh yeah, we can do 20 million tests a day. And the experts are saying, listen, buddy, you can't even do 5 million a day. You don't have the stuff and you don't have the, what is needed to actually do the test and get the results. So, and just anticipate, and you're going to hear more about real friction going on behind the scenes. And, you're going to be able to see the mercenary in Trump, okay? You're actually going to be able to see him really, really start to behave as if it's all about him. It's all about winning the election and nothing else matters. And he is literally going to be saying things behind the scenes like, I don't care who you take out. I don't care what you have to do. Destroy them if they're in my way, but get them gone. I have to win. And that's going to leak. Okay, that's just going to leak and it's not going to be good. And more people are going to see his selfishness. They're going to see what he is stealing literally from America and the American people. And that is actually not going to move him forward the way he would like. It's actually going to create a real stall for him. And he's going to be left out in the cold. And there you have it, because he has persisted in looking away from the truth. Okay, so having said that, let's take a look and see if we can get some clarity on what the inauguration is going to look like. And again, I repeat, it's early days, and so this is really more about most likely case scenario. And I guess to some degree, we'll see when the cards come out, but I think to some degree it is also going to assume that Trump is actually in office and, is actually in a position to be reelected. Here we go. So, here's my question, because I always have one. Tell me about January 2021 inauguration. January 2021 inauguration. January 2021 inauguration. Okay. Trump has showed up here in part because if he is in office and he does not get reelected, this is about him basically losing, right? He's not going to win. The burden to get him over the hump is significant at this point. Okay. I know that there have been some who have said that, astrologically or however they figure those things out, that honestly is way beyond my skill set, that it really could be a very volatile time for the United States. I'm not seeing or feeling kind of any flat out significant aggression should he actually have lost. Now, that is the point, but kind of if he is in office when the voting takes place in November, the time from the results coming in and the inauguration, I consider to be the most dangerous, all right? Because he's going to be angry, he's going to be lashing out, he's going to be trying to destroy everything that he can destroy. And so that's really when he's going to be at his most volatile. And that is when things are really, really likely to go off the rails. But I also feel like that is also when he has the most potential to try to flee. Okay? And let's face it, I mean, most presidents, most leaders, kind of always do that farewell tour, right, to all the other countries. So there may very well be opportunities where he may still be able to get on a plane and go. And of course, that depends, of course, on whether and to what degree this sort of virus resurges again in the colder months. So it definitely looks like the results are not going to be what he wants, and it definitely looks like he's going to be very defensive and angry and feeling, that he was unjustly hurt. Here it is. Here is my card for Biden, the Ace of Swords. So now we have both Trump and Biden sitting here on the table. Let's see what this tells us. All right, honestly, it looks like at this point, the inauguration is not going to be particularly more. There's going to be some flashes. There's going to be some angry. There might even be some protests. But the thing to realize is more and more Republicans, by the time we get there, are going to have lost a lot of their fight. Okay, they're going to be exhausted by this. They're going to have lost, and in all likelihood, they're going to have lost not only the presidency, but the Senate. And so there is this recognition that, you know what, wait a minute, it's done for now. And they're tired, and a lot of them are, I'm sorry, they're going to be sick. They're going to be financially in significant distress, physically in distress, and they're going to have spent several months, whether they wanted to hear it or not, hearing about all the things that Trump did wrong and all the things that should have been done a different way that wouldn't have ended up in the kind of results that you're seeing now. Which now, as I said at the beginning, you're talking 1/3 of the cases, but not 1/3 of the population. So it definitely looks like, and the other thing with all of the strength card and these kinds of cards, it very much looks as if, so the average person worries about rioting. The average person worries about things getting really out of hand. The average person worries about, him going really off the rails and doing something crazy. Trust me when I say the agencies that are out there trying to protect they're more than well aware of the things that we're worried about, because frankly, they're way, way more worried about them than we are, which means they're going to have strategies in places. They're going to have plans in places. This is not something that's going to catch them off guard, okay? So it appears as if things might ultimately end up not being quite as out of control, I think, as it would seem. I got to tell you, it really does feel a little bit like incredible fatigue. Like that's the energy that I've stepped into as I'm looking at the energy for the inauguration. It feels like everybody is just exhausted. And make no mistake, if he's actually still in town and if he hasn't actually tried to flee, he's going to be belligerent. He's going to be rude. He's going to indulge in behavior that is just beyond the pale. But that's him, right? You can't expect any better. So, I don't think it's going to be as decorum filled as they typically are. But, you know, again, nothing has been since he has taken over control of the White House and the world. I'm just going to, okay, so we have the Trump card and we have the Biden card. I'm just going to, I want to see, let's do it this way. Show me results of the election and the inauguration. Show me results, election, inauguration. Show me results, election. Okay. So these two cards look really good for him, except what you have here is a balancing of the power happening, exposure and illumination, and ultimately this is the state he ends up in. Take this pile. Perfect. Now, these cards might look a little scary, but just hang on. So what you have is a sense of peace and contentment sort of recovering, right? There's going to be like relief. There's going to be a sense of happiness that things are returning to normal. There's an acknowledgement of the huge amount of work and frankly, the huge amount of debt that is going to need to be addressed. But you know what? Again, the United States isn't going to be the only country who has massive, massive amounts of debt. Show me a country who doesn't have any in this at the end of the situation, and they have to be somewhere off planet, okay? The judgment's going to be passed, and that's going to allow him to put an end to this. And I grant you, like, it's weird, right? Because you would think that these are really good cards and these are kind of bad cards. But I'm telling you, ultimately, you've got strength coming in. You have a return to sort of regular power structures, if you will, coming into play. Yeah. Okay. So, again, I guess it boils down to people making the right decision come election time. Again, it is not going to be a slam dunk, okay? You got to get out there, you got to vote, you got to do everything you can to make sure that it's not only him that leaves office, but some of the hangers-on of his, they have to get out of the office too, okay? They need to be voted out, including the Mitch McConnells of the world. Okay, so for Friday, I'm hoping maybe that gives you a little bit of hope, some clarity going forward. It's going to be a bumpy weekend. I'm not sure why, but I'm telling you energetically, it's going to be a bit bumpy. So don't be surprised if there's more bad news coming out. Don't be surprised if more numbers come out that are kind of really scary. And don't be surprised if he misbehaves and acts like the fool he is. Have a good weekend. Until next time, take care. Be well. Bye-bye.